Ken is currently the CTO and Chief Innovation Officer of Medtronic. We met about, I was looking, 8 years ago when you were CTO at Ford, and you did a year at Amazon Robotics as well.
Yep.
So you've seen a lot. You've seen, you came from Lockheed, you've seen aerospace, you've seen automotive, consumer robotics, now healthcare. Why healthcare? What have you learned along your journey that led you to this path of, now I want to be, lead, an amazing company and their tech organization?
Well, first of all, it's great to be back at Techonomy. It's one of my favorite events of the year. If you look at my journey from starting actually working in a national security laboratory, it's moved closer and closer to things that really matter for humanity and closer to consumer influencing technology. The move to Lockheed Martin was my first move into a role where it was not funded by the government, but it was more of a commercial endeavor. And then going to Ford, where we made commercial, consumer-based, devices, cars. Everyone needs and wants and drives a car. And then moving to Amazon, getting closer to consumer devices. And what I learned in that journey was, as you get closer and closer to consumer and devices and purpose, the stakes increase, and the importance of the role sort of, it's more important to nurture that. I was really yearning the need to work in an organization that had a mission and a purpose that really mattered for the world and for people. And Medtronic approached me with this role, and I thought, well, it can't get much better than that. Working on technology that alleviates pain and restores health and extends life. This is a company that applies technology to make people's lives better. I mean, it doesn't get any more personal than healthcare and the data and the technology that gets to be brought together to make products that doctors use to heal you. And so I love what I do now, and to me, it kind of made sense.
Right.
Hopefully it made sense to everyone else.
And obviously, for the people who are in healthcare, they may be very familiar with Medtronic, but for those who may have seen the logo or heard the name, why don't you give a little context on the scale and scope of the company, really everything Medtronic touches? Sure.
So first of all, my role as the CTO is to tell that story more broadly. That's a part of my role, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here. Medtronic it's a global health tech company. We provide technology and products and services that touch and address more than 70 different conditions in the human body. And that covers from cardiovascular issues to neuroscience and neuromodulation devices that alleviate pain, treating the spine, technologies that will remove brain tumors. It includes digital surgery and robotics for soft tissue surgery, for minimally invasive surgery, products and devices that doctors use to perform surgery, staplers, cauterizers, all kinds of instruments. And then we also have a diabetes business unit that makes durable diabetes pumps. And I'm just scratching the surface. If you think about how many patients are impacted by our products, every second of every day of every year, we impact and touch more than 2 patients. So it's a company that really, in my opinion, it really matters. Right. So.
And we had a conversation this morning at the breakfast around how different industries, how different companies are leveraging AI, and obviously AI and ML have been around for a long time. But talk a little more specifically about now in your role, and how is Medtronic embracing AI, both internally for the employees as well as externally as it impacts its products?
Well, look, there's been a lot of talk already about the promise and the peril of AI, and the challenges and the opportunities in health care, particularly in the products and technologies that we work on, bring some unique challenges. And so one of the things I wanted to just say right up front is that the whole revolution around AI that brought us all to this conversation has been sparked by what's gone on in generative AI. But that's not where we're putting a lot of our focus when we think about how to make our therapies better and how to help clinicians be more impactful and help them with their operations. So, but the good news about generative AI and all the attention that it brought more attention to the deep learning and more classical neural network-based AI technology. That's the technology we use to make our therapies better. And our AI that we focus on for our products is AI that is working together with doctors, and that's really important. And I learned that when a long time ago from my time at Ford Motor Company, and even before that when I was at Lockheed Martin, that when you have a skilled practitioner that knows their craft, and then you can supplement that with a technology as advanced and capable as AI is, that skilled practitioner will only get better. And that's where the real magic is. And so we don't think about AI as a tool that will replace doctors. We think of it as a tool that will make doctors better, and it'll help doctors reduce their cognitive load so that they can focus their cognitive load on things that matter, spend more time with patients. For every hour that doctors spend with a patient, they spend 2 hours on administrative work and working with the computer and entering data into the computer. We think that's backwards, right. At least backwards. And so the technologies we work on will be a step in the direction of changing that. I want to talk specifically about two things that we are really proud of that are some of the first examples of how we're applying AI for external applications. And the first is in the area of endoscopy, the area of gastroenterology. And hopefully everyone in this room has signed up or has already had a colonoscopy. And it's an uncomfortable topic, but it's an important one because colorectal cancer is one of the top cancers that kills in the world. And studies indicate that 1 out of every 4 polyps that a gastroenterologist tries to identify is missed. And so using AI and a product that we call GI Genius, we've been able to reduce that by in half. And so that's a real difference because these polyps that are missed could be cancerous, and that could be the difference between life and death. So that's an example of how AI is making the gastroenterologist better and more effective. And a second product that we're really excited about is our insertable cardiac monitor called the Link 2. It's been enhanced by an AI algorithm that we call AccuRhythm. This algorithm was trained on thousands and thousands of data sets from prior Link 2 devices that were inserted. This is a device that gets inserted to monitor your cardiac rhythm because irregular rhythms can happen at any time. And so this insertable device, this implantable device, can detect irregularities that can then signal to the doctor that you need to have some care. But the challenge is the signals are not perfect and false positives were being issued. Using AccuRhythm AI, we're able to reduce those false positives by 90+%. And that allows the doctor to focus on the non-false positives, which gives them more time to focus on what's important. It also gave time back to patients so that they don't spend their time coming back to the doctor when the false positive is not a real signal. So these are two real examples of how AI is really making a difference in healthcare.
So obviously it's proven that AI, if used properly, is contributing to better health outcomes. But now let's put ourselves in the shoes of the patient that's coming into the doctor. Medtronic recently did some research getting consumer sentiment around the use of AI. And I was surprised to see, I think the number was 51%, had a positive reaction to the use of AI in their medical treatment, medical diagnosis. And I said, wow, only 51%.
Yeah,
to me, that was a low number.
That's right.
But on the other hand, you just told us that obviously there are better outcomes when leveraged. What from the research that you did surprised you in how consumers, if asked about the use of AI, maybe doesn't represent what many of us in the room would say, of course, we want AI to be used as part of this treatment?
Well, look, it's all about education and knowledge, and part of the survey taught us that the majority of people, I think the number was 83%, just are worried about the potential that AI is going to create errors or going to create negative outcomes, and more than 80% don't know the stories that I just shared with you, that AI can make clinicians better, can help clinicians interpret very complex data signals that come off of devices that are life-saving devices. And so it's our role as AI practitioners and as medtech professionals to share these stories and to communicate and to educate the world on what is really in the art of the possible here. This is one of the reasons why I was so excited to be here, so we can begin to tell this story, and why we put out a press release about this survey. Because the world needs to know that we're not talking about just using these generative AI tools to develop therapies that are not unchecked. All of the therapies that we use AI to make better go through a very rigorous FDA approval process. The FDA has approved more than 700 therapies that are now advanced by AI. Not all 700 are from Medtronic. But my point is that the regulatory agencies have a framework for how to help ensure that if we're using AI on medtech devices, we're doing that responsibly. And the world just, the layperson doesn't know that. Right. We need to tell that story.
And I think that, as we talked about, there's maybe even a misconception of when we talk about AI, right? You were at Ford, and autonomous driving, everyone immediately thought level 5 autonomy, which means, right, driver, hands off.
Or even level 4, hands off, right, in controlled regions, right?
When you ask a consumer about AI in healthcare, they may think that's fully robotic, no doctor, even involved. So the education's so important. At Lockheed, in military, we heard from Arthi the other night, again, we see these Black Mirror stories, we see all this around when robots take over. So as we think about educating in healthcare, Microsoft calls it Copilot now, right? That augmentation of humans through the use of AI, whose role and responsibility is that? Do you see ultimately the practitioner, the doctor, having to educate, media companies like ourselves, tech companies, or is it really everyone that has to help educate the consumer base that we're not just talking about ChatGPT, we're not just talking about full robots, that we're talking about positive outcomes here?
Well, it's all of the above. I mean, we all have a role to play, and it's not unlike prior technology inflections that have happened in the world, where the onset of the internet, the onset of mobile technology, all these new technologies, when they were new to world, people were trying to figure it out, and there were stories about all kinds of terrible things that could happen if you actually took on this technology or connected your device to the internet. But those eventually got debunked, and we put guardrails in place, and we created regulations to use them responsibly. And so it's all of our responsibility to play a role in educating on the appropriate and use of this technology and the promise of the technology. So, and the other important thing to acknowledge is that we're very, very early. I think several people have now re-quoted me. This is like day one, right? It's less than a year old, this generative AI technology, and deep learning is less than a decade old in terms of the latest deep learning models that have been trained on massive amounts of data. So it's very, very early. And as we get further and further in the journey of using AI in important fields like healthcare, we're going to get smarter about it. Regulators are going to get smarter about how to regulate it. Partnerships are going to form in order to navigate our way through the regulation. And the possibilities are going to be endless. What I'm super excited about is, if you think about all the data that we have now access to. And once we educate people on the promise of the application and the appropriate and secure use of this technology, we'll have permission to use that data to make personalized medicine a reality. Because every individual is different. The brain is such a complex thing, and now we could actually have implantable devices to help alleviate pain for patients who need that. And as we have access to that kind of data, imagine the kind of closed-loop models you could build that would actually help you understand how the brain works.
Right.
That could be applied to other conditions and other people. And that's just one example. I could do the same example on our vascular system. The same example could be applied to diabetes care with the having an ultimate closed-loop, hands-off diabetes management system that is personalized to you and your lifestyle and how you eat, how you exercise.
So you mentioned data a couple times. Obviously, we know we require a lot of data to train these systems. Healthcare data is probably some of the most sensitive data that a consumer could have, probably financial data, maybe a close second. Talk a little about how you think about the responsibility of companies in the treatment and how they use the data and the transparency that they have to have with the patient on how that data is used.
Well, the answer is sort of embedded in your question, which is you have to first of all recognize it is not your data, it's the patient's data. And you have to ask for consent. So you have to have mature consent management systems. The data has to be curated and labeled and de-identified and used in a responsible manner, which means you have to have all the security controls around it. When we built AccuRhythm AI to connect with and make our Link 2 insertable cardiac monitors smarter, we learned that 80+% of the effort was spent on getting that data right. And in fact, the architect for that system is in the audience. He's one of my colleagues. He's here. So having that kind of care and managing the data in that responsible way sets the precedent for people to be able to trust that you can do it the right way. So the more you do it the right way, the more trust is earned. Right? And so you can earn that trust by curating, managing, and having the transparency around the data in the responsible way with all the right controls in place so that people feel confident that giving you access to that data is worth it. Because the worth it means I now will get better care, and my outcomes will be better, and my clinician will be a more effective clinician.
And do you see over time, we've talked in years past as data as a currency, right? Sort of, obviously in this case, you're talking about better outcomes, but if I want to control my data and parse it out, ultimately and get paid for use of my data, do you see a roadmap where at some point, consumers are unlocking their data and getting value from their data? Yeah,
that's a great question. Like I said, we're so early in this journey. The directions that data management platforms might take one day is unclear to all of us. And as I mentioned yesterday, I spent a couple of hours reading through the presidential order, executive order, and it's pretty clear from reading through that we don't have all the answers yet.
Right.
The big tech companies that are building these foundational models are going to get new regulations. The data platforms that we take advantage of to build systems like AccuRhythm AI and like our GI Genius colonoscopy tool are going to be different in the future. The key is to have the dialogue and to have all the right people engaged. And so we're very intentional about how we're interacting with the FDA, with other agencies. That's one of the reasons why I brought my colleague and myself here, because I wanted us to have dialogue with other industries that are wrestling with the same questions. So we've just got to keep the dialogue open and be open-minded and never lose focus and sight to the fact that at the end of the day, what really counts is your mission. And our mission is to put patients first and to deliver better patient outcomes to alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. And if you keep your focus on that, then all the right things will happen.
Great. It's my understanding today they announced Bea, Black Engineer of the Year award was awarded to you. What does that mean to you?
Well, first, thank you. Look, This is I'm really humbled by the fact that they named me as the Black Engineer of the Year. By the way, the Black Engineer of the Year last year is also in this room, Colin from GE. So kudos to Techonomy. So look, it's not about us. It's about what we represent to inspire others. We've had a lot of conversation today and yesterday about equity and bias and having the right engagements, doing the right thing regarding people who are different than we are. A huge part of the answer is representation and also encouragement, letting Black and brown kids know that they can be successful, that others have blazed the trail in front of them. And the best outcome for me by receiving this award is having young Black boys and girls look at me on stage and go, I could be Kim Washington one day. I mean, that to me is the only reason why I'm just blessed by having that award.
Right. Ken, well, thank you for being such a great part of our community and joining us today. Let's give a round of applause for Ken.